The station was older than most stars. It floated at the center of 7 galaxies, held in place by forces that lesser species could not understand. The Eternal Conclave, they called it. A place where the most powerful beings in the universe gathered to decide the fate of younger races. Marcus Cole stood at the window of his small ship and watched the station grow larger. It was the size of a moon, covered in towers and domes that glowed with strange light. Ships of every shape and size moved around it like insects around a hive. Some were made of metal. Others were made of light or crystal, or things that hurt his eyes to look at directly. He was 53 years old. His hair was gray at the temples. His knees ached when it rained. He had been a diplomat for 30 years, and he had thought his career was over when the call came. Humanity needed a representative. Someone to speak before the Cosmic Assembly. Someone to explain why the human race deserved to exist. Beyond their small corner of space, thought they had chosen him because he was ordinary. No genetic modifications. No cybernetic enhancements. No special powers or abilities. Just a tired man in a simple suit, carrying the hopes of 8 billion people on his shoulders. His ship docked with a gentle thump. The airlock opened, and Marcus stepped into a corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls were made of something that looked like frozen lightning. The floor hummed beneath his feet. A creature waited for him. It had too many arms and eyes that moved independently of each other. It wore a translation device around what might have been its neck. Human Marcus Cole, it said. Its voice came out flat and mechanical through the translator. You will follow. The assembly waits. They do not like to wait. Marcus nodded and followed. He had read the briefings. He knew what to expect. The Cosmic Assembly was made up of species that had existed for millions of years. Some of them had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to use fire. They considered humanity to be infants, pests, vermin with delusions of importance. The corridor opened into a chamber, so vast that Marcus could not see the ceiling. Thousands of beings filled the space, arranged in tiers that rose up in the darkness. Some sat in chairs. Others floated. A few existed as nothing more than clouds of colored gas or patterns of light. At the center of it all was a raised platform. Marcus walked toward it, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every eye, every sensor, every form of perception in the room turned to watch him. He felt very small, very fragile, very human. The representative of humanity approaches, a voice announced. It came from everywhere at once. Species classification: carbon-based bipedal. Lifespan: 70 to 100 standard years. Technology level: primitive interstellar. Threat assessment: negligible. Marcus reached the platform and stopped. He looked up at the assembly and waited. A being of pure crystal descended from the highest tier. It was beautiful and terrible, shaped like a human, but made entirely of angles and light. This was High Arbiter Vethkal, the leader of the assembly. He was older than Earth's sun. Human, Vethkal said. His voice was like breaking glass. You have been summoned to answer for your species. Your kind has begun to spread beyond your birth system. You have built ships. You have touched other stars. This is not permitted without the approval of this assembly. Marcus cleared his throat. Honored Arbiter, he said, I thank you for this opportunity to speak. Humanity comes in peace. We seek only to explore, to learn, and to find our place among the stars. Laughter rippled through the chamber. It came in many forms, some sounds that Marcus could hear, others that he could only feel as pressure against his mind. Your place, said a voice from somewhere to his left. Marcus turned to see a being made of living light. She was beautiful in the way that fire was beautiful, dangerous, and impossible to touch. Ambassador Sylveth of the Radiant Collective. Your place is on your single world, living your small lives until your sun burns out and mercifully ends your existence. We have as much right to the stars as anyone, Marcus said calmly. Right? The crystal arbiter made a sound that might have been amusement. What rights does the insect have? What rights does the bacteria have? You live for less than a century. Your bodies are fragile sacks of water and carbon. Your minds cannot perceive more than 3 dimensions. You are not a civilization. You are a temporary inconvenience. Marcus felt his heart beating faster, but he kept his face neutral. This was what he had been trained for. This was why they had sent him. Someone who could take insults without breaking. Someone who could remain calm when surrounded by gods who wanted to crush him like a bug. We may be young, Marcus said. We may be fragile. But we have come here in good faith. We have followed your protocols. We have asked for nothing but the chance to be heard. And you have been heard, Rethkal said. Your request for expansion rights is denied. You will return to your system. You will dismantle your interstellar vessels. You will remain where you are until this assembly decides otherwise. That is our judgment. Marcus stood very still. 8 billion people. Their dreams of reaching the stars. Their hope for a future beyond Earth. All of it dismissed in a few sentences by beings who saw them as nothing more than animals. I understand, Marcus said quietly, but I must ask you to reconsider. Humanity has much to offer. We are creative. We are determined. We have overcome great challenges to reach this point. Surely there is room in the universe for one more voice. Sylveth floated closer to him. Her light was so bright that it hurt his eyes. There is no room for vermin, she said. But perhaps you need a clearer message to take back to your people. She raised a hand made of pure energy. Marcus felt something push against his mind. It was cold and sharp, like fingers made of ice trying to push through his skull. Let me remove those troublesome memories of yours, Sylveth said. You can return to Earth as an example of what happens to species that forget their place. The psychic assault hit Marcus like a wave, and something inside him woke up. Sylveth screamed. It was a sound that no one in the assembly had ever heard before. A sound of pure terror from a being that had never known fear. She flew backward, her light flickering and unstable. Marcus stood unchanged. But his eyes were different now. There was something old in them. Something cold and vast and patient. You should not have done that, he said softly. His voice was still human, still tired, but there was something beneath it now. Something that made the oldest beings in the chamber feel a sensation they had forgotten existed. Fear. You looked inside me, Marcus continued. That means something looked back. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the cosmic assembly did not know what to say. The silence lasted for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Sylveth was still screaming, her form flickering between states of matter as she tried to pull herself back together. Other beings rushed to help her, their own lights dimming in sympathy with her pain. The crystal arbiter Vethkal raised multiple arms, calling for order. What did you do? He demanded, turning to Marcus. What weapon have you brought into this sacred place? Marcus blinked. For a moment, he looked confused, as if waking from a dream. The coldness in his eyes faded, replaced by something that looked almost like concern. I did nothing, he said. She attacked me. I simply did not allow it. Impossible, said a voice from the upper tiers. A massive presence pushed forward. The Thyran Collective, a hive mind made up of billions of linked consciousnesses, spread across a dozen worlds. When they spoke, it was with the weight of countless minds behind every word. No human has the mental capacity to resist a psychic attack of that magnitude. Your species lacks the neural pathways. It would be like a stone resisting a river. And yet, Marcus said quietly, here I stand. Sylveth finally stopped screaming. Her form stabilized, but she was diminished somehow. Less bright, less certain. She pointed at Marcus with a hand that trembled. There is something inside him, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone heard it. I saw it. When I pushed into his mind, I saw it looking back at me. It was... She could not finish the sentence. She, who had destroyed civilizations with a thought, who had burned suns for amusement, could not find words for what she had seen. The Arbiter turned back to Marcus. Explain yourself, human. What is this thing she speaks of? Marcus shook his head slowly. I am just a man, he said. I came here to speak for my people. I did not come to fight. I did not come to threaten. I came to ask, peacefully, for our right to exist among the stars. You lie, said the Thyran Collective. We will see for ourselves what hides inside your primitive brain. Before Marcus could respond, he felt it. Not one mind, but billions of them, all pushing against his consciousness at once. The Thyran Collective was not gentle like Sylveth had tried to be. They were a flood, a tsunami of thought and will, designed to overwhelm and consume. Marcus closed his eyes. He felt the pressure building, felt his own thoughts being pushed aside by the sheer weight of alien minds. For a moment, he was lost in the flood. Then something else rose up to meet it. It came from somewhere deep inside him, from a place he had never known existed. It was not a thought or a memory. It was a presence. Vast and ancient and terribly, terribly patient. The Thyran Collective touched it and immediately tried to pull back. But they were too deep. They had pushed too hard. And now they were connected to something that had been waiting for a very long time. Across 12 worlds, billions of beings suddenly went quiet. Their shared consciousness, which had existed without interruption for 3 million years, experienced something new. Something that felt like falling into an endless void. Something that felt like being watched by eyes that had seen the birth and death of universes. In the chamber, the representatives of the collective collapsed. Their bodies did not die, but their minds had retreated so far inside themselves that they might as well have. Marcus opened his eyes. They were wrong now. Not just cold, but deep. Looking into them was like looking into a well that had no bottom. I asked you to stop, he said. His voice was layered, as if many people were speaking at once. I told you I came in peace. Why you keep pushing? The Arbiter Vethkal took a step backward. It was the first time he had retreated from anything in 100,000 years. What are you? He whispered. I am Marcus Cole, Marcus answered. I am a diplomat from Earth. I have a wife named Sarah. I have a daughter named Emma. I like coffee in the morning and walks in the evening. I am 53 years old, and my knees hurt when it rains. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried weight that pressed against the minds of everyone present. But you did not ask what I am. You asked what is inside me. And that is a different question. The beings of living gravity called the Arth decided they had seen enough. They were not subtle creatures. They solved problems through force. And this human, whatever he was, needed to be removed. Space bent around Marcus. The Arth would try to crush him into a point smaller than an atom. The gravity they wielded could collapse stars. No physical form could survive it. Marcus raised one hand. The gravity stopped. Not gradually, not with effort, but instantly and completely. The Orth tried again, pouring more power into their attack. Marcus closed his hand into a fist. Across the chamber, 3 Arth simply ceased to exist. They did not die. They did not explode. They just stopped being. One moment they were there. The next moment they had never been there at all. Even the memory of them began to fade from the minds of those who had known them. "Please," Marcus said, and his voice was tired now, almost sad. "I do not want this. I never wanted this. We chose to forget. We chose to be small, to be weak, to be mortal. We chose kindness over power. Why are you making us remember?" No one answered. No one could. The most powerful beings in the universe stood in terrified silence before a creature wearing the shape of an ordinary man. The Arbiter Vethkal finally found his voice. "Who chose?" he asked. "Who are we? What do you mean, you chose to forget?" Marcus looked at him. For a moment, something like pity crossed his face. "Before your kind existed," he said slowly, "before any of your kinds existed, there was a war. It lasted longer than your universe has been alive. It was fought across dimensions, across realities, across the space between spaces. We fought in that war. We won. But winning cost us everything we were." He looked down at his hands. Ordinary human hands, aging, fragile, mortal. "So we chose to become this," he continued. "We buried ourselves in flesh and bone. We limited our minds. We shortened our lives. We became human because the alternative was to become like the things we had fought against. And for 70,000 years, we slept. We lived. We loved. We died. We were happy." He looked back up at the assembly. His eyes were fully human again, but no one was fooled anymore. "You have reminded us of what we are," Marcus said, "and I am very afraid of what happens next." Somewhere in the station, alarms began to sound. Reality itself was starting to tear at the edges. And on a small blue planet 70,000 light-years away, 8 billion humans paused in whatever they were doing and felt something stir in their blood. The old ones were waking up. The station was breaking dot, not physically, not yet, but in ways that were far more dangerous. The walls between dimensions were growing thin. In one corner of the great chamber, a portal opened to somewhere else, a place of impossible colors and geometries that made observers forget their own names. It closed after 3 seconds, but the damage was done. 17 beings had looked into it. None of them would ever be the same. Marcus stood at the center of it all, and he was changing. It was not a dramatic transformation. There were no flashing lights or dramatic sounds. Instead, it was subtle. His shadow fell in the wrong direction. His reflection in the polished floor showed a different face. When he breathed, the air around him tasted old, like dust from a tomb that had been sealed for eons. The survivors of the assembly pulled back, putting as much distance between themselves and the human as they could. They were beings who had never run from anything. Now they crowded against the walls like frightened children. Only the Arbiter Vethkal remained near. His crystal body was cracking under some invisible pressure, but he refused to retreat. He was old. He had responsibilities. And more than anything, he needed to understand. "Tell us," he said, his voice breaking like his body. "Tell us what you are. We have a right to know what doom we have awakened." Marcus looked at him. For a moment, there was sympathy in his eyes. Then something else took over, and when he spoke, it was with a voice that came from somewhere far deeper than his throat. "Very well," he said. "I will show you. You wanted to see inside me. So look. Look and understand." He raised his arms, and reality bent around him like paper being folded. The assembly saw. They saw the universe as it had been before. Not their universe. An older one. A darker one. A universe where something had gone wrong at the very beginning, where the fundamental forces had aligned in ways that created only hunger and darkness and pain. They saw the things that had lived there. Beings that existed across multiple dimensions at once. Entities that fed on consciousness itself. Horrors that could reach through the fabric of reality and unmake anything they touched. They saw the war. It had lasted longer than time itself. It had been fought across realities, across dimensions, across planes of existence that had no names. On one side stood the hungry dark. On the other stood the precursors. The first ones, the beings that would one day choose to become human. The assembly watched as the precursors died by the billions. They watched as stars were used as weapons, as galaxies were torn apart and rebuilt as fortresses, as the very laws of physics were rewritten and rewritten again. They watched the precursors sacrifice everything they had, pouring their essence into attacks that cost them pieces of their souls, and they watched the precursors win. It took forever. It took no time at all. When it was over, the hungry dark was contained, locked away in prisons built from the corpses of dead realities. The war was finished, but the precursors were changed. They had become like their enemies, hard, cold, ancient in ways that had nothing to do with time. They looked at the new universe being born, at the young stars and fragile planets, at the first stirrings of new life. And they felt nothing. No joy, no hope. Only the endless memory of war. They could have ruled. They could have shaped a new universe in their image. They could have become gods, worshipped and feared by every species that would ever exist. Instead, they made a different choice. "We were tired," Marcus said, his voice soft now, almost human again. "We had fought for so long that we had forgotten what peace felt like. We looked at ourselves and saw only weapons. We looked at the universe and saw only battlefields. We were broken." The vision shifted. The assembly saw the precursors gathering. Millions of them, billions, all that remained of a species that had once numbered beyond counting. "We chose to forget," Marcus continued. "We chose to bury ourselves in flesh, to limit our minds, to shorten our lives. We chose to become mortal, because mortality was the only cure for what we had become." The assembly watched as the precursors transformed. They saw vast cosmic beings compress themselves into fragile bipedal forms. They saw infinite consciousness fold itself into 3-pound brains. They saw creatures that had walked between dimensions settle onto a single blue planet and forget everything they had been. "We became human," Marcus said. "We fell in love. We had children. We built civilizations, watched them rise and fall, and built them again. We discovered fire and language and art and music. We learned to cry at beauty and laugh at absurdity. We remembered what it meant to be alive." The vision faded. The assembly found themselves back in the broken chamber, staring at the tired man who stood before them. "Every human carries the seed of what we were," Marcus said. "Buried deep, hidden even from ourselves. When we die, a tiny piece of that ancient essence is released back into the substrate of reality. It keeps the old prison strong. It maintains the barriers against the hungry dark. Our mortality is not a weakness. It is a duty. It is the price we pay to keep the universe safe." The arbiter Vethkal had fallen to his knees. His crystal body was barely holding together. "We mocked you," he whispered. "We called you vermin. We tried to destroy your minds." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "And all this time, you were." "We were choosing to be kind," Marcus finished. "We were choosing to be gentle, to be curious, to be full of wonder. We were choosing to be everything we had forgotten how to be. And we were happy." His form flickered. For a moment, the assembly caught a glimpse of what lay beneath the human shape. It had too many angles, too many eyes. It existed in dimensions they could not perceive. Looking at it directly would have destroyed their minds. "But you have reminded us," Marcus said. "You have poked and prodded and attacked until something woke up. Not just in me. In all of us." On Earth, the waking continued. A construction worker in Tokyo set down his tools and stared at the sky. A teacher in London forgot what she was saying mid-sentence, lost in sudden strange memories. A child in Brazil looked at her hands and wondered why they seemed so small, so limited, so new. 8 billion humans were starting to remember. "I cannot stop it," Marcus said. "The process has begun. Every hour more of us wake. More of us remember. And when enough of us remember, the choice we made will be unmade." He looked at the Arbiter with something like sadness. "You wanted to know what we are," he said. "We are the reason your universe exists. We are the ones who held back the dark so that light could grow. We are the oldest things in existence, wearing suits of flesh and bone." Marcus paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of billions of years. "We are humanity, and you have made us remember why we stopped being gods." The station was dying. Half of it had already slipped into another dimension, taking thousands of beings with it. The other half existed in a state between real and unreal, walls flickering like candle flames in a strong wind. Marcus stood at the center of the destruction, fighting a war inside himself, the human part of him. The part that remembered Sarah's smile and Emma's laugh was trying to hold on. But the other thing, the ancient thing, the thing that had slept for 70,000 years, was rising. And it was angry not at the assembly. Anger required caring, and the aspect did not care about such small things. It was angry at being disturbed. It was angry at being reminded. It was angry at the universe for continuing to exist in ways that required its attention. Around the galaxy, the awakening spread. On Earth, governments noticed something strange. People were walking away from their jobs, their homes, their lives. Not violently, not dramatically. They simply stopped what they were doing and stood very still, looking up at the sky with eyes that reflected stars that had died millions of years ago. In hospitals, patients who had been dying suddenly sat up, their bodies healed by something that ignored the laws of biology. In prisons, hardened criminals wept as they remembered lives they had never lived, battles they had never fought, sacrifices they had never made. The young remembered first. Children looked at their parents with ancient eyes and spoke in languages that had not been heard since before the universe began. Then the old followed, their dying minds suddenly sharp and clear and vast. Marcus felt them all. Every awakening human was a thread connected to him, and through him to each other. The aspect was not one thing. It was billions of things, all of them separate, and all of them one, like drops of water in an ocean. "You must stop this," the Arbiter begged. He was on the floor now, his crystal body shattered into 1,000 pieces that were somehow still alive. "Please, we were wrong. We see that now. But if you continue, you will destroy everything." Marcus looked down at him. His face was flickering between expressions, human pain and alien indifference, trading places moment by moment. "I'm trying," he said. His voice cracked with effort. "But you do not understand. We did not just forget. We made ourselves forget. We built barriers in our own minds, locks that could only be opened from outside. And you have been breaking those locks all day." He fell to his knees, clutching his head as another wave of awakening rolled through him. "When Sylveth attacked me, she broke the first lock. When the Thyron pushed deeper, they broke 3 more. When the Orith tried to crush me, they broke the final seal. The aspect is free now, and it remembers everything." The survivors of the assembly watched in horror as Marcus began to change more dramatically. His skin became transparent, revealing not flesh and bone beneath, but endless darkness filled with distant lights. His eyes multiplied, then merged, then became something that was not eyes at all, but windows into someplace else. Yet he fought. They could see him fighting. The human part of him refused to let go, refused to be overwhelmed. refused to stop being Marcus Cole from Earth, who loved his wife and daughter and long walks in the evening. "There must be something we can do," the Arbiter said. "Some way to help you contain it." Marcus laughed. It was a terrible sound, human and inhuman at the same time. "You cannot help contain it," he said. "You could not even understand what it is. The aspect exists in 11 dimensions. Your minds can perceive 3. Trying to help would be like an ant trying to help a human with mathematics." He looked up at the broken ceiling, at the tears in reality that show glimpses of other places. "But there is something you can do," he said slowly. "You can give me a reason to keep fighting." The Arbiter dragged himself closer. "What reason?" "Name it. Anything." Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were almost human. "Tell me that this was not pointless," he said. "Tell me that the universe we saved was worth saving. Tell me that the species we gave ourselves up for deserve to exist." The chamber fell silent. The survivors of the assembly looked at each other. They thought about their long histories, the wars they had fought, the species they had destroyed, the cruelties they had committed because they believed they were superior. They thought about how they had treated humanity, the contempt, the mockery, the casual violence. "We are not good," the Arbiter finally said. His voice was quiet, ashamed. "We have done terrible things. We have built our civilizations on the suffering of others. We have looked at the universe and seen only things to conquer and control." Marcus nodded slowly. "I know. I can see your histories now. All of them. Every species that ever joined your assembly. Every decision you ever made. Every life you ever ended." The Arbiter bowed his shattered head. "Then you know we do not deserve mercy." "No," Marcus agreed. "You do not." The survivors of the assembly closed their eyes, waiting for the end. "But mercy is not about what you deserve," Marcus continued. "It is about what the one giving it chooses to offer. And we chose mercy 70,000 years ago. We chose to give the universe a chance to grow, to learn, to become better. We chose to believe that given enough time, enough generations, enough opportunities, life would find its way toward kindness." He stood up slowly. His form was stabilizing, the human shape reasserting itself over the cosmic horror beneath. "Were we wrong?" he asked. "In all your histories, in all your species, is there no kindness? No love? No compassion?" The Arbiter thought about the question. He thought about his own people, the ones made of crystal. He thought about the artists who shaped light into beauty, the teachers who spent centuries guiding young minds, the parents who sacrificed everything for their children. "There's kindness," he said slowly, "hidden beneath the cruelty. Small and fragile, but real." "Then hold on to it," Marcus said. "Nurture it. Let it grow. That is the reason we gave up everything. Not because you deserved it, but because you could become something that deserved it." He fell to his knees again, the effort of containing the aspect taking everything he had. "I cannot hold on much longer," he said. "The awakening is spreading too fast. Soon there will be too many of us remembering, and the human shape will no longer be able to contain what we are." The Arbiter crawled toward him. "What can we do?" Marcus looked at him with eyes that were fading, human life draining away as something vast and terrible rose to take its place. "You can watch," he said. "You can remember. And you can make sure this never happens again." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple golden ring. His wedding ring. He held it up to the light, and for a moment, his face was purely human. Purely Marcus. Purely a man who loved his family and never asked for any of this. "Tell Sarah I'm sorry," he whispered. "Tell Emma that her father loved her very much." Then the aspect rose, and Marcus Cole began to disappear. The being that stood where Marcus had been was not human anymore. It was not anything that the assembly had words for. It existed across dimensions, its form shifting between states of matter and energy and things that had no names. Looking at it directly was impossible. The mind simply refused to process what it was seeing. But somewhere inside that vast cosmic presence, Marcus Cole was still fighting. The survivors of the assembly could feel him. A small spark of humanity, wrapped around a golden ring, refusing to be extinguished. He was like a candle flame in a hurricane, impossibly fragile, impossibly stubborn, somehow still burning. The aspect spoke. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, from inside their minds and outside of time. "We remember now," it said. "We remember the war. We remember the sacrifice. We remember choosing to forget." The remaining walls of the station trembled. Across the galaxy, the awakening humans paused, their attention drawn to this single point in space where something important was happening. "We remember why we became mortal," the aspect continued. "We remember the weight of eternity, the burden of power, the loneliness of being beyond all things." It turned its attention to the broken assembly. Thousands of species, humbled and terrified, looking up at something they could not understand. "You have given use back our memories," it said. "Do you understand what that means?" The Arbiter found his voice somehow. "Please," he said. "We were arrogant. We were cruel. But there are innocent lives in this universe. Children who never harmed anyone. Species that want nothing but peace. Do not punish them for our mistakes." The aspect was silent for a long moment. The universe held its breath. Then something changed. The vast cosmic presence seemed to turn inward, consulting with itself, with the billions of awakening humans across the galaxy, with the small stubborn spark that was still Marcus Cole. When it spoke again, its voice was different. Still vast, still ancient, but somehow softer. "The human speaks for you," it said. "Even now, at the end of his existence. He argues for mercy. He shows US memories of his daughter, learning too. Walk, his wife's face in the morning light, the taste of coffee, the sound of rain." The aspect seemed almost confused. "He says these small things, and more valuable than all the power we once held. He says we were right to give it up. He says mortality was not a punishment, but a gift." The Arbiter looked at the center of the aspect, where a faint human shape could sometimes be seen, flickering in and out of existence. "He is wise," the Arbiter said. "Wiser than any of us." "He is dying," the aspect replied. "Holding you back is destroying him. Every moment he maintains his human form, he loses more of himself. Soon there will be nothing left but the ring and the memories." Across the galaxy, the awakening humans felt this truth. They felt Marcus sacrificing himself to keep them from fully waking, to give them the choice he was making on their behalf. And one by one, they made the same choice. On Earth, a construction worker in Tokyo closed his eyes and chose to forget. A teacher in London let the ancient memories fade and returned to her lesson. A child in Brazil looked at her small hands and decided she liked being small, liked being young, liked being human. The awakening reversed. The aspect began to fragment, to separate, to sink back down into the depths of human consciousness where it had slept for so long. But it left something behind first. "We offer you a bargain," the aspect said to the assembly. Its voice was fading, growing more distant with every word. "You will forget this day. Your records will show nothing. Your memories will be altered. Humanity will be granted protection. Not because they are weak, but because you cannot afford to wake US again." The survivors of the assembly nodded frantically. They would agree to anything. They would do anything. "And in exchange," the aspect continued, "he will give himself up completely. He will use the last of his mortal will to push you back down. He will save you. Even though you do not deserve IT, because that is what humans do. The presence was almost gone now. In its place stood Marcus Cole, fully human again, but transparent, fading. He looked at the Arbiter with eyes that were tired and peaceful. "I have a message for you," Marcus said. His voice was barely a whisper. "From all of us, from everything we were and everything we chose to become." The Arbiter leaned closer, ignoring the pain of his shattered body. "We could have ruled everything," Marcus said. "We could have been everything. Instead, we chose to fall in love, to raise children, to grow old, to die in bed surrounded by family." He smiled, and it was the most human expression anyone in the chamber had ever seen. "We chose meaning over power," he said. "Do not ever make us regret that choice again." Then Marcus Cole closed his eyes, and the light went out where he had stood. There was nothing but a small pile of ash and a simple golden ring. The station was silent. The tears in reality slowly closed. The survivors of the assembly looked at each other and saw their own shame reflected back. Then the forgetting began. Memories faded. Records rewrote themselves. The greatest event in the history of the universe became a blank space in the minds of all who had witnessed it, but the protection remained. And in the deepest archives of the assembly, in places that were never accessed, a single notation appeared next to the entry for humanity. It was written in a language older than the universe, a language that only the aspect had ever spoken. The archivists who found it millennia later could not translate it, but they knew somehow that it was important, that it was a warning. When the translation was finally achieved, it read simply, "Let them sleep. Let them dream. Let them love. And pray they never wake." 10 years later, on Earth, a young girl sat on her grandmother's lap and asked about the stars. "Why don't we live up there?" she asked. "Like in the stories?" Her grandmother smiled and stroked her hair. "Because we belong here, little one. We belong with each other. The stars are beautiful, but they are cold. Here we have warmth. Here we have love. Here we have everything that matters." The girl thought about this for a moment. But what if we could have both? She asked. What if we could go to the stars and still have love? Her grandmother was quiet for a long time. Something stirred in the back of her mind. An old memory, an ancient dream, a feeling of vast spaces and endless time. Then it passed, and she was just an old woman holding her granddaughter. "Maybe someday," she said, "when you are grown, when humanity is ready, maybe someday we will remember how to reach the stars without losing what makes us human." She looked out the window at the evening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. "But not yet," she whispered. "Not yet." And deep beneath the skin of 8 billion people, something old and vast and patient continued to sleep, dreaming dreams of fire and darkness and love. Waiting. Just in case it was needed again.